Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Coach Rich Sutter. We've got Pete Coles, the MVP of this operation, with us today. It's cold outside today, Pete. It's really cold outside. Thankfully, it hasn't affected too much shooting around the country, as we're seeing some really good basketball, some unbelievable hoops being played right now. And as we have illuminated before, the college basketball world is completely upside down. In our top 25, quick announcement, we do not have a number one this week, Pete. I left it blank.
Really?
Nobody deserves it. I left it blank. We have a number two. So we're going to jump right off here with our NBA Feed 'em Fish. And just really, really quickly, because I don't want to get into a lot of this, but I just wanted to say to the Chicago Bulls fans, your team isn't very good, but what happened with Thelma Krause in your building the other night absolutely was terrible and is a stain on your organization. They booed the widow of Jerry Krause, the former general manager. They booed Jerry Krause in the presence of his widow when she was coming in to the building to honor the memory of the late Jerry Krause, who was a general manager of the Bulls for many years and led to the many championships that they had there. Absolutely not cool, Chicago. I've seen Santa Claus get booed in Philadelphia, but I think this takes it to an absolutely new level because it's very personal.
I was going to say, what are they, Philly fan now?
I don't want to get into it, but to be honest with you, Chicago, that absolutely sucks. Okay, the firing on all Pistons segment that we have today, Pete. The Pistons obviously mired in one of the worst seasons in NBA history right now. They've continued their ways when they had a trade this week, and obviously if you're in last place and you have 4 wins, it's a great thing to try and pull a trade off and do something. But what they're doing right now is just kind of dumping trade money and cap money. So what you had was, though, but the ineptitude of the organization was on full display as they traded Bagley and Isaiah Livers. Certainly okay to trade people, but they traded them right in the middle of practice. They notified the two men right in the middle of practice, and they started to walk out the gym, say their goodbyes to their teammates right in the middle of practice.
By the way, before you get on to the next thing, when you finish this thought, your interview is ready to go.
So we have a special guest with us today, folks. We've been trying to bring it in and get it all the way from Washington, D.C. When we say super pumped about this guest, we're just not even in the realm right now. I woke up this morning at 6 o'clock. I put on the Bruce Springsteen early just to get ready for this, but this is a really, really exciting moment. And today in the zone, we would like to welcome a very, very special guest to us, Coach Chris Caputo from George Washington University. Coach, welcome.
Coach, thanks for having me on. My pleasure. My honor.
This is an honor. This is an honor, and this is going to be about the best 20 minutes I've had in a long time. So I'm going to sit back and try and enjoy this. And my interview style, I was told, is open-ended, so I like that. I'm going to let you talk mostly today. But again, the people of Westfield know Coach Caputo as my captain, my first recruit at Westfield State, and now we all take great pride in watching his success as a coach at George Mason, at Miami, and now having a chance to be the head coach at George Washington. It's not only very special for the Caputo family, who I'm very close with, but also very special for the Westfield community. So in preparation for the game, with Massachusetts coming up, we wanted to bring Coach on, let him expound some of his views on that. But I did want to make a little bit of light work here right in the very beginning before we jump into any basketball. First and foremost, I wanted to just mention your lovely wife, Julie, and just get an idea of, she's a rock. We got a rock in my house. I know she's your rock. And so I just wanted you to jump off on this, and I'm praying this isn't a surprise to you, but in the zone, we want to wish Julie happy birthday, because tomorrow's Julie's birthday, and she's going to be 21 all over again. So, Coach, tell me about the rock.
It's a big milestone birthday tomorrow for Julie, and unfortunately, I'm only going to be there for a few hours in the morning before we've got to leave for Western Mass. But it's we'll try to enjoy both, hopefully playing well on Saturday and then getting back and celebrating her birthday in DC over the weekend. But we, been lucky that Julie and I have been together, shoot, almost 20 years now. And, she's kind of been through this whole journey from George Mason to Miami and now back to the DC area, GW. And as you know, coach's wives, they really got to
Very
put up with a
special.
lot. Yep,
They're very
there's a
special. They're very
special
special.
place in heaven, and they got to put up with a lot. They got to sacrifice a lot, and she's certainly done that all these years. Probably didn't know what she was getting into, but I've been fortunate enough to be married now for going on 12 years, and so been lucky. And I'm sorry I can't be there all day tomorrow, but we'll hopefully have a great weekend.
Happy birthday. The First Lady of George Washington basketball, never been represented this well. Let's talk about the young ladies at home. Being a dad, how's that shaped your coaching philosophy? How does that change you as a human being?
Yeah,
Lily and Charlotte, we want to give a shout out to you. Saw you playing in the snow the other day. Unbelievable. And go ahead, Coach. Tell us all about that.
yeah, Florida kids. They were born in Miami. They lived there obviously till last year. Charlotte till she was 3, and Lily till she was almost 8. And so they get excited now when they get, well, cold weather. I don't think they get fired up about, but if it snows, then they get some fun there. But it's yeah, it's been great. My kids are, they're super involved in like our program. They come to the games. They know the players. They're into it in terms of the just being supportive and being around. They've been, Charlotte got kind of a little bit of the short end because of COVID, but Lily's been to like 25 states or already by the time she's
Wow.
9 years old. Because of all the we were fortunate enough. Coach Larinaga was fortunate, allowed us to have them travel and stuff. So she's been to a bunch of NCAA tournament sites and, exempt events, Hawaii and different places like that. So they've got a chance to move around a little bit and kind of see the world through the basketball life, which is pretty cool.
It makes life special. That makes life special. All right, I'm going to throw a quote out here, Pete, and it's a Jackson Brown quote, and it's something that I keep close to my heart, but it's this. It's I have built my spirit to the gentle sound of the water laughing on the higher ground. Jackson Brown quote. Nothing reminds me that much. That quote reminds me absolutely of one gentleman by the name of Sweet Lou Caputo. I know you lost your dad
Yeah.
recently. I loved him. He was an unbelievable gentleman and quite a life of his own. So let's talk about Lou a little bit. Let's reflect.
Yeah, yeah. Lost my dad. My dad passed away August of 22. He was kind of a unique life. He, from New York as well, obviously Brooklyn. Dad died when he was 4, and so had no like real formal training until he got to his teens, but became a professional jazz musician.
Wow.
Played
Unbelievable.
every woodwind instrument. Played Carnegie Hall. Was on Harry Connick's records. Played you name it. I mean the Four Seasons. Um, just number of people throughout the years all over the world, and had just a unique life. Wasn't like a huge sports guy, but like I think getting into coaching is kind of a crazy choice of profession for people. And I always used to joke that it wasn't like that crazy in my house because my dad kind of had a crazy choice of profession as well. So
Sure.
it wasn't like, some people's parents would be like, well, what are you doing? You're getting into coaching. And it's like, coaching might even be more stable than jazz playing. So I was
Yeah.
lucky in that nobody really got in my way and stopped me from trying to do something that was probably crazy.
Yeah. I think that Music people to me are a very special type of person because they actually embody the music, and I think that was in your dad's soul, and he's just a great guy. And I want to shift gears here now a little bit to a gentleman we also have in common. I've been railing on this show that the Hall of Fame needs to put Jack Curran into the Hall of Fame. And I
Yeah.
just wanted to talk about the profound influence that Coach had on you, on me,
Yeah.
and that's kind of a connection to us. We have hoops, Coach Caputo and I. We have Springsteen. We love Springsteen, but it's a Jack Curran thing as well too. And Coach Larinaga, Coach Carey, very profound influences in both of our lives. Both played for Coach Curran, and so let's
Yeah.
talk about Coach a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I owe so much of my professional career to those three people, right? Coach Curran, yourself, and Coach Larinaga, and all connected through the Malloy family. And I was not a great player there or anything like that, but I was fortunate enough to play at Malloy. I think be a good teammate, a good representative of the program. That Coach Curran's effect on me, but so many other people that he touched, both baseball, basketball. Um, he really, if we want to just talk about the Hall of Fame lens, one, he's on the ballot now for the first time, and I
Right.
think we got to thank. I know for a fact we got to thank Pat Riley, because I think Coach Larinaga was able to uh, get with Pat Riley a little bit and sort of make the case, which allowed for some conversations to happen where it illuminated Coach Curran's greatness, and now he's on the ballot. But to me, it's like he was the best coach in high school basketball at a time where New York City was the best high school basketball place, maybe certainly in its time, but maybe of all time, right? In that
One hundred
window,
percent. One
like the
hundred
late,
percent.
the 50s into the 90s, and certainly he carried on into the 2000s, and even to coach a guy like Russ Smith, who won a national championship at Louisville, or people like that. But just if you just looked at that time period, he's the best coach at a time when basketball was at its best, and to me that's Hall of Fame worthy, right? And so you hope that he's able to get his due uh, respect and everything that goes along with that by seeing him enshrined in the Hall of Fame. And certainly I think he would even tell you, hey, Coach Wooten, very, very warranted. Coach Hurley, very warranted. But certainly, as you start to look at high school basketball coaches, Coach Curran's right there. And I think he would also tell you that his baseball success, the winningest baseball coach in the history of the United States, in some ways kind of takes away from the basketball history,
100%.
because
Yep.
it was half the year for him, where those other guys might have been doing a little bit more in terms of the political stuff and the camps and clinics and the off season. Coach Curran was busy being the all-time winningest baseball coach of all time
No,
as well.
his accomplishments are unbelievable. One of the reasons I enjoy this show and doing this show is because it does give me a little bit of a soapbox, and to the people in Springfield, I've been on it, and I'm going to stay on it. Bob Hurley and Morgan Wooten would both say that Jack Curran belongs in that Hall of Fame with them.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm going to throw a few names out: Phil Connors, Patty Sweat, Manny Hanny, Manchester, John Mazzoni. Those are some of your teammates. Ethan Slavin, some of your teammates at Westfield. What did your time
Yeah.
at Westfield mean to you?
I had a great experience. I thought it was really fun to go into what was an unknown. In a lot of ways, it's not a place that I'd spent a ton of time prior. I think probably for you, it was the same.
It's
And yeah,
identical.
yeah, but it was. I thought there were great people there. I mean, yourself, T. Staff, Tony
Thank you.
Staffieri, Tad
Yeah,
Tokars, Ed Winch, like
Eddie
those guys.
Winch.
I've
Eddie
got
Winch.
great memories of being around them and trying to get the program started. Obviously, Phil Connors and I are best of friends still, and stay in touch with all the guys that played there from time to time. And a lot, I might even wind up seeing a few when we play this weekend. But like, I just think the idea of building the program. We weren't very good, obviously, to get started. Uh, I always tell people we got pretty good, and then if I remember correctly, after our junior year where we had a winning record and sort of had really started to make some progress, we just had bad injuries the following year.
Yeah.
And so Brian James and Vaso had gotten hurt. That's a first team all league player and rookie of the year.
Right.
Those guys are out by mid year. And then I think Kyle Sparks at that point had moved on. So that team, I think, could have been the first team to sort of really turn it. It wasn't because of
Yeah.
circumstances. But shortly thereafter, what you've been able to do, get it going and then keep it going for a long, long time has been, I feel like proud to be a little part of that as we got it started. And we worked very, very hard. We were not we were not very good, but I can tell you, like, we worked our asses off. I mean, we were in there. I was in there with T staff at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting extra work in. I mean, this was that era. It's kind of the beginning of the workout era, where guys would, we would play a lot too, and we'd play one-on-one after practice and things like that, which I think is important. But man, we would get in there and work, and it didn't matter how cold it was or whatever. And we were doing it. Not, I've been fortunate to be on a big stage here at times throughout my career, but I mean, we were just doing it for the love, of being in the gym and working and trying to get better. So I've got great memories, in touch with my friends from Westfield all the time, which is great.
Coach, we know you got to get to practice, but let's just go into your assistant days. Your days as an assistant coach. George Mason, obviously the Final Four there was a Cinderella story. Your fingerprints were all over that. The success at Miami, the NBA is littered with Chris Caputo's recruits. And so talk about your experience as assistant there. I mean, it's just a great time and a building block, I'm sure, for what you're experiencing now. But let's just chat about that a little bit.
Yeah, we was fortunate enough again through Coach Curran, to get the connection to Coach Larinaga. I went down to George Mason, kind of sight unseen, didn't really know much about the business, other than just a little bit of what I learned from yourself and Guy Rancourt, another good friend of mine who went to Malloy and is the coach of Western Connecticut, and was able to just go down there, and I had opportunities to leave. I never left. I stayed 9 years. We were able to go to Miami, and it was a daunting task. Probably one of the programs in the ACC that really hadn't had much more basketball success, just little pockets
Right.
here and there. Leonard Hamilton had done a good job, but then left for the Wizards, and
Yep.
you look up in the rafters, and you're like, man, we got to compete against these people: Carolina, Duke, Virginia, Maryland at that time, NC State, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, what have you. And then they add Louisville, Syracuse, Pitt, Notre Dame, and yet over the 11 years I was there, we were really one of the better teams in the league over that time. I think we had 4 or 5, double buys in the ACC tournament, where it means you finished in the top 4 and won the league and came in second twice. And I think in that league, to be really good, you got to have. I mean, the one thing we would say about that league is, if you look at the history of the league, there's great coaches. It's really about the great players. Like, nobody's winning in that league if you don't have NBA
For
slash
sure.
Euro League level talent,
Yep.
and that's just the bottom line. You've got to be able to recruit, retain, develop NBA level talent. Maybe not quite in the NBA, but that guy who might be right below. But no one's out like foxing anybody there. You better have good enough players, and we were fortunate to have a number of different guys throughout the years, and great experience. And I was happy there. Was not thinking about leaving, but when George Washington came available, it was a place I was a little bit familiar with from my time at George Mason, and
Sure.
an 11-10 job, and a situation where I thought you could build out a good program with. They'd had success in the past, but not maybe as sustainable. And that's what we're trying to do now, is try to build out a little bit more of a sustainable situation here.
Well, your first year and it was a success, and now you have the team rolling and doing some great stuff. We talk about the A10 here quite a bit. I'm a Bonaventure graduate. The league is really pair this year. The league has a lot of parity. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Dayton's got a great player in Deron Holmes, and they're sitting at the top of the league. There's a number of teams, including us, that have one loss, and I just think people ask me about the league, and I felt like there was so much turnover in coaches. Um, I think it was 9 new coaches or something, 10 new coaches in like a 2 year span.
Wow.
And that's, continuity is so important, especially in this environment where the players are changing all the time. If you're changing the players and the coaches, I think you're going to get some inconsistency there. I think the A10 has really the vast majority, and almost to a school, people are trying to get after it, right? They're trying to resource the programs,
Yep.
they're trying to better the programs, they're trying to do things and operate in a way that is geared towards trying to make the NCAA tournament and have success. And now that there's a little bit of continuity with the coaches, I think you're going to see um, more consistent non-conference performance, which will lead to, I think, better, net ratings. I mean, I think the net, quite honestly, is just completely tilted towards the Power Five
Of course.
in every way. That's, I joke that our two at-large teams at George Mason, one that went to the Final Four and one that won a game in the first round, beat Villanova in the round of 32. I'm not sure that they would have gotten in the net era,
Yep.
right? That was the RPI era. So, but that being said, I think the league has got really good coaches, and I think as we build out a consistency of some of the programs, I think you're going to find that the league will get back to getting multiple bids. How many? It's just hard to say, but I think it will be a multiple bid league.
On our show here, we refer to that as weapons of math destruction. They're using algorithms and they're using math in order to create a scenario, which is a little. We're going to talk about that a little later on the show when we let you go. Just give us briefly before we let you go a little bit of offensive philosophy. We got a lot of young coaches that watch the show. A little bit of
Yeah,
defensive philosophy. What's your philosophy in the basketball world?
yeah. I think what I would ask guys is just how do you define what basketball success would be? And for me, it's like whichever team gets the most high expected value shots normally wins, right?
Yep.
So what's expected value, right? Well, your team has an expected value, right? As a group, each individual player has that, right? Steph Curry's expected value shots are different than, a guy who only gets rebounds and can't shoot, right?
Sure.
But
Sure.
how do you as a team create the most high expected value shots, and how do you limit your opponent from getting those, for them? And so that never changes, right? And so I think when then you look at your team and you say to yourself, okay, how does this group, be it via spacing, be it via action, uh, system, what have you, using your personnel, create the most high expected value shots? And then how do we keep our opponent from those? And some of those are like real simple, right? Like if you get back and set your defense, you're going to take away some portion of their high expected value shots. If you
Yep.
go get it on the backboard yourself and lay it in, and then you get to set your defense, you're going to go take away a certain amount of their transition opportunities. Hey, when a shot goes up, if you can block out and go get the ball, again, you're going to take away a certain amount of their high expected value shots. Hey,
Sure.
if you protect the paint, because we know if the ball hits the paint first,
It's
the
deadly.
after that, good things usually happen for your team or their team. Again, if you can protect the paint, then again, you're limiting their expected value. Now, how does that look in what offense or defense you run? So much of it is based on your personnel. I mean,
Sure.
we led our league in scoring last year. We're first in effective field goal offense this year, and I don't start 5 shooters, right? I don't even start 4 shooters, and yet we are highly. So people would say, well, yeah, all that shooting is why you're effective. No, we can find ways to be super efficient offensively without shooting at 5 positions. Now it's hard if you don't have shooting at least 3,
Sure.
right? But uh, there's ways to do it, and I think that's where you've got to look at your own team and figure out, okay, how do we do this, and then how do we play advantage basketball that we're able to find advantages, whether it's two on the ball, whether it's a matchup advantage, uh, that we can then play off and keep that advantage until we actualize a great shot. And then again, same thing. How do we do that conversely on the defensive end where we're limiting those opportunities?
Sure.
So
Role definition is difficult these days. Role definition is very difficult these days to talk about with players, but it's so, so critical to your success. Coach, UMass, just quickly, we're going to let you go in 2 minutes. I
yeah,
know you have practice. Give us
oh, we're
two
good.
minutes on UMass, and what do you think challenges they present?
Yeah, I think Frank's done a really good job with the roster. They turned it again for a second time, but I like their pieces. They've got great inside play from Cohen and then Matt Cross, who I coached at Miami, is I think playing the
Right.
best basketball of his career.
100%.
Uh, I think the game really starts when the ball is shot because they're the number one offensive rebounding team in the Atlantic 10, and so so much of what they do is they get the ball inside in transition, they get the ball inside in the post, they get the ball inside on some driving situations, especially cross, and then they get the ball inside by getting a ton of offensive rebounds. So you're going to have to find ways to keep them out of the paint as best you can. And then defensively, I think they've been good at mixing and matching. I mean, they're playing some matchup zone, a tandem zone, which is a little bit different than most teams.
Right.
And obviously a very physical, typical of a Frank Martin team, physical man-to-man team as well at times. So I think well balanced. I think those two front court guys are really a catalyst. And I think they're getting much better play from Rasul Diggins this year, which has been a critical piece for their perimeter.
I watched them play last night against Loyola Chicago. I watched the entire game, and it was just heartbreak central the way they lost that game at the end. But it was a great, great Atlantic 10 basketball game. Coach, I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure and an absolute honor, as you said, to the staff at Bamontes, to all the crew back at home, to the people at Malloy. We love you. We're all connected to you. But, Coach, this has been a really special moment for me, and I wanted to thank you for coming on, and I plan on seeing you guys tomorrow.
Yep, see you tomorrow, Coach. Thanks for everything. Thanks for everything you've done for me, and means a lot. And as much as I'm not necessarily excited about flying into Western Mass weather tomorrow. I will always have a special place in my heart for Western Massachusetts and that area because of the years we spent there and the opportunity you gave me. So thanks so much.
Allie, Jordan, and I could not be prouder of you. Keep doing the great work, and we love you.
Appreciate it.
Pete, that was exciting.
Yes, it
That
was.
was absolutely exciting, Pete. He's an owl for life. He's an owl for life. And if you want to see some really good basketball, folks, get up to that game tomorrow. On Saturday. Get up to that game on Saturday because Coach Martin's doing a good job. But I think Coach Caputo is one of the hottest young coaches in the game today. His record in overtime stands really, really good. When you want to know what a coach is doing well, look at their team in overtime. And as I said before, I hope GW is paying overtime because Coach has had a really, really high number of games in 2 years that he's been there, but his record's impeccable there. All right, so let's get back to the NBA fish that we were on. We're going to have to really move and groove here if we're going to complete, but I don't think there's any way we do it now with that little bit of a 30-minute segment with Coach Caputo. But we were
Great interview.
Just really excited. Yeah, he's the best, the absolute best. His mother and his brother Matt. I just know the family a long time, and they're absolutely gracious, class people, and I love them. All right, so we're going to go back in. Pete, I think you're going to like this. The NBA implemented a 65-game rule. And in the 65-game rule, they say if you don't play in 65 games, you're not eligible for these awards. And I thought that was really interesting because of the load management that you and I have talked about with guys taking time off when they just, they have a migraine headache and they're out for 14 games. I think this is going to have a little bit of a way to do that because, as everybody knows, the best way to motivate people sometimes is through money. And a lot of the players have some of these bonuses built into their contract. And so if you have a situation where you're the MVP, that creates probably millions of dollars in bonus, And so these are some of the things that you can't be. MVP, you can't be all NBA, you can't be defensive player of the year, you can't be most improved player, and you can't be on the all defensive team. I thought it was interesting that they left Rookie of the Year off of this. But, of course, the NBA is going to NBA. And this gets qualified as you go through the small print. The qualifications are it's 20 minutes per game. that constitutes a game. You have to have met at least 20 minutes in that game, but you can count 2 games at 15 minutes. But if you do not meet, let me tell you real time how that matters.
Isn't the game 60 minutes long?
It's a lot longer than 20, but it's and 15 is kind of funny, because if somebody's really hurt, you're not going to play in the game at all.
Right.
You know, but if you're saying I'm going in for 20, that's the definition of load management. It's the exact thing the NBA was trying to avoid.
Let's see what's the bare minimum we can give them.
Well, here's where we're at right now. Right, exactly. Let's put in a rule that's not a rule. And so let's look at where we're at with last year's MVP, Joel Embiid. He's missed 10 games so far already this year. If he misses 7 out of the next 44 games, he's not going to qualify. So it was interesting to see him come back. Is this going to make people rush back after injury? I'm not in love with it, but I did think it was interesting. Okay, Pete, do you have that clip that I sent you?
I
Can
do.
we pull that up? This is what I'm talking about, folks, when we say defense is dead. But I want to just watch this clip of the New York Knicks' Julius Randle and his just complete lack of any kind of design about helping the team, being a good teammate, being on defense. Let's just see if we can watch this clip and go. Okay, missed the free throw. Now watch, right in the middle of the floor, jogs up the floor, doesn't get back. Now it gets bad. Watch this.
Huh? Where am I?
Yep. Stands there. His man runs right by him, starts walking the other way. Play's still going on. He's just kind of hanging around, still standing there, pointing, go get your man. That's what's wrong with the NBA, folks. That's what's wrong with the NBA. This
That's
isn't
crazy.
the first time. This isn't the first time for Julius Randle as well. If I was the Knicks, I would move him, because you can't run a team like that. Anybody who thinks they're going to produce on offense and not play defense erodes the core construct and the fundamentals of your team. I'm a New York Knicks fan from way back. That's embarrassing to your organization. It's embarrassing to the defense chant that resonates through Madison Square Garden. And if I was the Knicks, I'd be looking to beat the trade deadline and get this guy out of town as fast as possible. A couple of different things have occurred with some trades. It looks like the Toronto Raptors are having a garage sale. They're having a clean-out sale of all their salaries. They just traded their best player, Pascal Siakam, to the Pacers. What they got in return wasn't a whole lot. And you're seeing now some of these teams right before, with Livers getting traded and Bagley. Now, Bagley was the number 2 pick overall in the draft. He's been traded twice now. He makes only $12.5 million by NBA standards. But I did want to include with Julius Randle, he's getting $29 million to walk around like that. That's why people don't like the NBA, folks. Okay. Let's get out of the NBA fish and let's move into NCAA fish. All right? The NBA is a little rough to handle sometimes, and
It's
our
infuriating.
fans, and our fans, they speak on that quite a bit. All right, as we talked about in a little easier part of the segment, we talked about this week's number 1 is not there. This week's number 1 was not included in our top 25. And now I know the Husky fans are howling down in stores because they were the first Big East team in a long time to take the floor as the AP number 1. But the whole thing is just upside down right now. And so in the zone, trying to be straight with our people, we don't have number 1 this week. We came out with NCAA fish, and we said, no number 1. Nobody deserves it. Number 1's a distinction. Number 1's an honor. Number 1 has been held as a distinction in basketball for a very, very long time. Nobody right now meets that distinction. Okay, Gonzaga was bounced finally from the AP 25, but if you look at Ken Palm, he's hanging on. He's got him down there in 24, 25 land. It's just hard to say goodbye. Michael Jackson in the old days sang, "It never can say goodbye." Well, it doesn't seem like they can ever say goodbye to Gonzaga. Gonzaga got bounced out of the APs, though, and I'm assuming they're out of the coaching bid as well. Fran McCaffrey, the head coach at Iowa, just set the record for most wins in victories as a coach in Iowa history, and it's significant because he beats Dr. Flex the creator, not maybe the creator, but the real inventor and the guy who brought the flex offense to college basketball, Dr. Tom Davis. He eclipses Dr. Tom Davis. And on January 6th, he also eclipsed Dr. Tom Davis for most Big Ten wins as a coach as well. So congrats to Coach McCaffrey. His Iowa team has done very, very well and has really, really held well. And that's a difficult job. So that's a tribute to Coach McCaffrey. VJ Edgecombe, one of the great recruits, one of the top 5 recruits. And this was interesting to me. At least the top 10 of in what would be called ESPN's top 100, at least in the research I did on the top 10, all of these young men have NIL deals already. All of these young men have NIL deals in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you saw what happened to Florida State, just getting whacked on the NIL arrangement that they had because they had involvement in setting up some of the deals. I think some of these schools are in for a long haul if they get the can tied to them on this one, because some of these young men, at least the top 5, top 10 players, their NIL deals are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. VJ Edgecombe decided to pick Baylor. A little bit of a surprise, but he cited that he had a great relationship with the Baylor staff, and over time they worked it and got it together. And I thought Duke would be his destination just to go in there and form this super team. But he's a really, really good player and a very talented player as well. So hats off to the Baylor staff. UConn was listed number 1. So we'll give them their due on the mention here. It's first time since '09 that a Big East team has taken the floor as number 1. So the fans were excited. They beat Creighton last night to hold on. Creighton didn't look very good at all to me last night, but UConn looks very, very good. And I would assume next week they'll be our number 1, as long as nothing happens to them in the meantime. But that's
so that's a return
first...
up this way by Derek Kellogg, right? He's coaching Creighton now?
He's coaching at Creighton, he is. Yes, it is. Great mention. Great mention. And so you have UConn, first time since '09. Villanova was the team in '09 that had the number 1 distinction. Our friend Jeff Jones at Old Dominion is going to be out for the year. He had a heart attack, suffered a heart attack at one of the tournaments in Hawaii. We're wishing Coach the best, but he is going to take the rest of the year off. Kieran Donahue is going to take the reins for the rest of the year, and I probably know Kieran Donahue since he's 5 years old, so that's a little bit exciting. A little shout out. He's a CHSAA New York guy, 100%, and a great family as well, the Donahue family. Very, very steeped basketball history as well. All right, Rick Pitino had a response to his loss at Creighton. St. John's played very well. They lost by 1 point in Nebraska, in Omaha, with a really tough trip. And the reporter asked Pitino if he took some solace from the way that his team played, that they played very hard, very together, really put up a great fight, and lost by 1 point. And I thought Pitino's comment in response was telling. And he said basically this, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said basically this. He goes, no, I don't really take a whole lot of solace in those Pyrrhic victories where we did good, but we didn't win. He goes, when I lose, I want to die. I want to crawl off in a snowbank and get frostbite. Okay, so I guess he did crawl off into the snowbank a little bit because he caught COVID and missed the game the other night, and they got absolutely smoked by Seton Hall. But Seton Hall's very good, folks. I told you this. 15 out of the top 25 teams lost, Pete. That's why we left the number 1 open. 15 out of the top 25 teams lost. Unbelievable. Purdue is right there, but they're 1-1 this week. Houston 0-2. Kansas 1-1. UConn is 2-0. Tennessee 1-1. Kentucky 1-1 with a tough loss at A&M. North Carolina holding on, Pete. North Carolina's holding on. Duke and North Carolina are setting up to have a very good, my favorite game of the year, which is the Duke-North Carolina game. They play twice. I love both of the games. This one's shaping up is going to be a really good one. Arizona is fading like a cheap suit, and Oklahoma, it's one thing, and this is, we take this into account in our top 25, although the weapons of math destruction don't always show this. This is why our poll's better than their poll, because they just rely strictly on math. And when I look at their math and I go, your math fooled you, your math went crazy, sometimes when you're too smart, you wind up outsmarting yourself. And so that's what happens a little bit with those mathematical algorithms. And what happened was we looked at some of this stuff and it just doesn't work for us because you're including teams that shouldn't be including there and you're excluding teams as well that really, really do belong.
Well, you were talking about this with the power conferences. There can only be so many good teams. There's going to be a lot of mediocre teams, and there's going to be a lot of bad teams. So the top 25 is going to shake up a lot, I think, all season long.
If they shake it, if they really do shake it, under these constraints, and I thought Coach Caputo eloquently spoke on this, under these constraints, and we're going to talk about this in a minute because I want to show you what happens when the cannoli, leave the gun, take the cannolis have been devoured. Let's show you a little bit what happens there, and let's just jump into that really, really quick. When you have a situation where, team's been good, they've been really, really good, and then you look at some of the numbers, but then you flesh out everything that's in the numbers. I'm trying to look for the sheet that I have right now. It's disappearing on me, but one of the things we talked about was we looked at Clemson specifically, and we looked at their number of years and how they start off 12-1, 13-4, 15-2, and then in the back end of their season, when they're actually into their conference play, now you see that they have a situation where they're not doing as well. I found it. So here's a couple of things. In 2023, they started off 15-3. In the back end of their games, they went 8-8. And so you sit there and say, 23-11, what a great season. Not really, because those are all cannolis. You go again in 2022, 9-4, they finish 8-12 in the season. Again, you point to, wow, 17 and 17 or 17 and 16, they had a winning record. Really? Not really. Not when you were 9-4 with your cannolis. And so as you go through the year, you see all of these Power 5 teams, they really have the deck stacked in their favor. This mathematical algorithm has been set up with strength of schedule and everything included in that only to buttress and bring the Power 5 teams into their rightful, what they feel is their rightful place. And I get a little bit of that conversation, but that's not what this thing was built on. Not what this thing was built on. And now if you want to just completely dissect it and tear it down, well, I think the people should have something to say about that as well, because they're the ones who supported it all this time. All right, this is huge when you want to start talking about your bracket. Okay, the Big East right now is what they call Quad 1 wins. Quad 1 is the top 25. The Big East, as a unit, as a whole conference, they measure this out, and they're leading right now with 25 Quad 1 wins. You're going to see a lot of Big East teams get into the NCAA tournament with that measurement. The Big Ten, which was a little surprising, is tied with 25 as well. The Big 12 are littered in our top 25 because I really think that conference is the best that there is this year. They're at 22 for Quad 1 wins. Now, that's going to increase. All of these teams are going to increase because now they're playing teams that are in Quad 1. Now, a team like Grand Canyon, who's 15-1, they're not going to have any Quad 1 wins. They're not going to have any games against a Quad 1 team. James Madison, on the other hand, although I doubt that Michigan State stays in Quad 1, but they would have had, at the time, that's the thing also. At the time, they were second and third in the country when James Madison beat them. Now they've fallen out. So do you recognize James Madison's win at the moment, where they were second or third in the country, or do you recognize James Madison's win in the totality of what now happens to Michigan State, which is they're falling like a rock? And so does that hurt James Madison? It does. But the win that they had was when they were second or third in the country, and that's where this algorithm stuff goes a little batty for me. ACC is in at 21. Very solid conference this year, although they're carnivoring themselves, just like the Big 12. Pac-12, 16. I was a little surprised at that they would be tied with the SEC. I was originally thinking the SEC was going to have a really solid year. Mountain West is a really great conference. I watched Rick Pitino Jr.'s team the other night, New Mexico. They're loaded. They're very, very good. And what happens is people don't watch San Diego State. They don't watch New Mexico. They don't watch Colorado State that much because they're on late at night. But those teams are really, really good. The Atlantic 10 has 5 quad 1 wins. That speaks to the conference. It speaks to how good they are. All right. Here was another tidbit I thought was interesting. And then we're just going to jump into our I hope we can get there. We'll do our Power 15 NBA and we'll do our top 25 NCAA, but I think we're going to be on roller skates, Pete, because we're down to about 12 minutes.
Yep.
All right. So, NCAA tournament wins since the year 2000. Kansas, 58. UNC, 55. Duke, 54. Michigan State, 49. Kentucky, 46. Gonzaga 41. That's a good standard for Gonzaga. UConn I thought would be a little higher than this. They're at 39. Florida 39. Billy Donovan era was very good. UCLA 35. Wisconsin 35. And then it drops off Arizona 32. And Syracuse 32. Villanova's in there as well. So I thought that was interesting. Jeff Goodman put out something that we'll talk about next week. But it was the worst 20 coaching hires of all time. And I looked at the list. I went over the list, and then I added a bunch more of my own. I was like, I wanted to contact Goodman, but I have to go back historically and see if some of mine, because he went since 2000. And I kind of looked at the whole profile since I've been watching this thing. So I'd have to go back and see where that was on the Mason-Dixon line there. But I did want to bring this up also, Pete. The great Oscar Robertson, when he was in college, played for the University of Cincinnati. They got involved with a game against Seton Hall. And this is a little known fact that I was staggering when I saw it. Oscar Robertson actually outscored Seton Hall.
Wow.
In a basketball game. 56-54.
Wow.
Cincinnati went in and ramshackled them 118-54. Oscar Robertson had 56 out of 54. I don't know, man. That's like one of the greatest accomplishments I've ever heard of. I loved Oscar Robertson.
One-man butt kicking.
Averaged a triple-double in the NBA. And when people talk about the great players of the world, they don't include Oscar Robertson. And it's because I figured this out a little bit also, though, Pete. People that are LeBron James fans, they didn't see the old guys.
Right.
They're only up in this new era of seeing LeBron James. And so there are some people that have that crossover that say LeBron James is the best player of all time. Most people that I know that had the ability to live in both of those environments, in all of those eras, they all say generally Michael Jordan's the best player of all time. But it's the new players when I sit there and I say, do you think LeBron is the greatest player of all time? Oh, yeah, LeBron's the best. And then I say, did you ever see Michael Jordan play? And they go, no, I never saw him play. And I was like, that's the problem. If you saw them both play, you'd know, because there's a marked difference in my mind, a big, big difference. Okay, Celtics are holding on, Pete, in the NBA Power 15. They're 31-9. They're playing at a clip of 775%, which is off the charts. They're 8 out of 10 almost every time they go into 10-game stretch. This number 2 team, we've talked about them, and love this team. Love what they're doing, man. This is a lunch pail team. This is a blue-collar work ethic team. I love it. They're holding their opponents to 107 points a game. What a work ethic. They're the team in the NBA that keeps everybody under 110. That's why they're number 2, though. Minnesota Timberwolves, 28-11. We're looking at almost a halfway point here. We said, it was a small subset. We only had 17 games. Oh, we're at 30 games. Well, we're almost at the halfway point now. 41 games out of an 82-game season draws you to the halfway point. So if the Celtics are 31-9, you're at 40 games. You're almost there. You're almost there. They had that in-season tournament as well too. I'm not sure how they're gonna do that. Milwaukee Bucks, although last week we talked about them having lost 3 in a row, they've come back strong, playing great basketball. They're 28-12. Really, really excited about this team. The Oklahoma City Thunder comes in at number 4, and they are playing and operating on all cylinders. SGA, as we said, it's not Student Government Association. It's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, one of the top young players in the game today. Philadelphia 76ers are hanging on. They've survived the loss of James Harden. They're 26-13. They're doing good stuff. Embiid has been out for a while. So for them to have held the line as they did here with the loss of their great superstar MVP, I think that's pretty good stuff. So I think they're holding on. They've won 3 games in a row. Embiid is back now, so I think this team could rise a little bit. Denver Nuggets in number 6. Jamal Murray's back. We reported when he came back, they'd get back. 28-14. They're on the move. Absolutely smoked last week in Utah, though. I bet the stink of that one hurts. But that Utah team's really hot. That Utah team's really, really hot. All right, we got the L.A. Clippers in at 7. And Harden and company are doing really good work. They're one of the best teams in the NBA right now. They're 8-2 in their last 10, 26-14, and they had a really rough start to the season, but they're cooking with gasoline right now. The Cleveland Cavaliers, man, did this team rise out of nowhere. Just won 5 straight games. Donovan Mitchell doing great stuff out there. They have a really, really kind of not a tight roster where you would say, wow, that's an NBA roster that's deep and can do it, but they're making a lot out of it. And right now, for the Cavaliers to be in the 8th spot is really, really good accomplishment for them. We go 9 is the Miami Heat, 24-16. They're coming on a little bit. Butler's been in and out. New Orleans Pelicans are another surprise team. We take the Wolves. We take the OKC Thunder. The Pelicans deserve a mention as well. They're doing some good stuff. Dallas Mavericks, Luka and company. If you want to really know how they've been driving it right now, look at some of Kyrie Irving's numbers lately. He's been playing great basketball. Great basketball. New York Knicks coming in 23-13. Anunoby has really shored up their frontline defense and helped them. The Indiana Pacers are making some moves. Halliburton out for a little bit, but the picking up of Pascal Siakam puts them. If this works, you're going to see them rise within the top 7. I think they'll get into the top 7 if this works. And when we say does this work, it's a chemistry thing. So that's what Pete and I talk about a lot. You just can't throw a new guy into a team in the middle of January and it always works. It might. They're pros. They can work it out. They can figure it out. But it's a challenge for the coaching staff nonetheless. Sacramento Kings in at 14. And we got the Phoenix Suns slipped in there at 15. They've been a little bit hot. Kevin Durant's been doing a good job there. Okay, our guys, Utah is doing great. We really didn't think much of them in the beginning of the year, but Lauri Markkanen's turned into one of the great guys and one of the good success stories in the NBA, and he's really loading that team up. Charlotte, still a little bit of a disappointment. They've lost 5 games in a row. The Utah Jazz have won 6 in a row. All right, our crate and bottom of the barrel, we go to Crate Bob. We're going to call this Crate Bob from now on. Pistons, oh, I don't know what's going on there, Pete. They've gone back and started a new win streak of 1 game, but they're 4-36 after 40 games. The Spurs are 7-32, and the Wiz are 7-32. At some point, you might see them shut down Wembanyama a little bit, but they didn't include Rookie of the Year in those games, I think, possibly for a reason, so they might be able to load manage some of their rookies. Golden State still below the Mendoza line. Toronto and Atlanta really, really not doing well. And if Toronto keeps trading all their players, not going to get much resonance out of that. Not going to get a lot of vibration out of that, and puts the coach in a really bad spot as well.
Yep.
Okay, Pete, we're flying here. NCAA Power 25. Number 1, nobody. Nobody. We put nobody in number 1. It's an honor. It's a distinction. I'm assuming we get with UConn soon, but they're 17-2. We have them in number 2, and I'm calling this team the Caravan Caravan. Alex Caravan has this team on his back. He is playing unbelievable basketball. You don't hear his name every day, and I'm telling you, this kid is really, really playing great basketball right now. Unbelievable.
UConn ringing the bell.
We got it. The dogs are howling down in stores, but they got a great team, and Coach Hurley's doing a really good job. We left Purdue at number 3, 16-2, and that's because a bunch of people just kind of fell around them. Zach Edey really, really waved goodbye to the rest of his wooden people, I say. You know, he put back-to-back 30 games. He had 30 and 20 in 1 game. So he just took the wooden field right there and blew them all a kiss, said, we'll see you guys later. I'm the 2-time winner of this. Number 4, Auburn, very, very high on this team, 14-2. They have the broom. Johnny Broom. He's a great big man. They work around him. They play with defensive intensity, and they're really, really good. I like Kansas. Ken Palm got a little bit of a problem with Kansas as he posts them in 13 hole, but they're 15-2. I don't know why they would be 13. But I'm calling that operation they have right now mac and cheese. They have McCullough, and they got the big cheese Hunter Dickinson, and they're doing good. That right there is a 1-2 punch, as we've illuminated here before. Is that enough? We don't know. North Carolina, 13-3, leading the ACC, undefeated in the league right now, doing great. R.J. Davis should be given some player of consideration for player of the year. I doubt that's going to resonate a whole lot with what Zach Edey's doing, but R.J. Davis is doing great things out of New York. Of course, we love our New York guards. And then I put them right below because I want to hype this game a little bit that's coming up, is the Dukies are right below North Carolina, and they're at 13-3 as well. I like that Coach Shire has righted the ship a little bit. The team is forming, which says that they're doing some good stuff, but we're going to have to see how this rolls out as they get into the really, really thick heart of this ACC schedule. All right, we have Kentucky at 13-3. Coach Cal's got them playing tough, doing some good stuff. Reed Shepherd, one of the rookies on the Wooden list, is doing some great stuff. They're mercury in a bottle. They could blow up and win the whole national championship, or they could get bounced out in the first round. Houston, they dropped 2 games after all those cannolis, and I dropped them way down. They're 14-2. They're doing good stuff, and Ken Palm left them way up top there. I moved them way down to 9 because you were 14-0, and then you just dropped 2 games. When we went into the Big 12, we said you were going to have problems. You did have problems. We have to reflect that in our poll. BYU, Big 12, they're living. They're surviving, 14-3. They have great offense. They have great, great offense. They really, really play well as a team together. Texas Tech, 14-2. They're a good team. Ken Palm has them at 29. I'm not sure why the math doesn't like them, but they're doing good. San Diego State, 14-3. Iowa State, 13-4. Tennessee at 14, 13-4. We slipped them back in, but we're watching them carefully. Illinois, without Shannon Sharp, has had some suspension without Terrence Shannon, excuse me. Shannon Sharp was on the brain today for some reason. Without Terrence Shannon, they're 12-4. They're holding on. Baylor, 16. Memphis, 17. They're probably a little higher. Ken Palm has them, 46. I don't know what they're thinking. Wisconsin, 18. Colorado State, I love this team, 19. Nevada, I like this team. And here's where we rattle the globe a little bit. I wanted to take Oklahoma completely out of the top 25 and put in Utah State, who's doing really, really good. Oklahoma was undefeated. Now you have 3 losses. You're gone. We'll see you later. Arizona.
Shaking the snow globe for you.
Arizona, they're up at Ken Palm, number 3. Pete has the snow out as we close here with a flurry. And they are 12-4. Dayton, 8-10. They're 14-2. We like them. Put them in at 23. Here's 2 surprises for you. 24, New Mexico. I watched them the other night. They're the real deal. And I'm going with the Grand Canyon at 16-1. They're doing good stuff out of the whack. We love them. Let's put them in. Let's get them a mention. Why are we going to throw Gonzaga or Michigan State in there with all the losses they got? Let's go Grand Canyon. Folks, check this show out. It might have been our best. We love you. We'll see you next week.